Hello everyone and welcome to a very grey Scotland. It was grey all day, not the best conditions for photography I know. So what I decided to do was head out to the forest, as you can see here, a really nice forest, with some Cinestill 800T film to try and capture a unique view of some of the landscape inside the forest, some of the trees and some of the other nature. Although immediately I was distracted by this nice green field with some horses in it. My plan was there was this massive horse and this nice wee small horse, and the idea was I want to take a photo with just a small horse in it, but as you can see, as soon as I pulled up to do that, the big horse went in the way and stayed there for ages. You can see here just the amount of time it took to try and get the perfect shot with just one horse in it. The last thing I wanted was the two of the horses in the photo, or one in front of the other, and this ended up being the longest I spent on a photo in this session. You can see here the trouble I had trying to wait for them to get out of the way. This took genuinely about 15 minutes and definitely affected the overall end product of the photo. This was nothing like the kind of photo I intended to head out and get, but the time was fantastic because it allowed that grey sky to clear and to get some nice warm tones in what is usually a very, very cold blue film. I was actually amazed by the way this photo turned out. It wasn't very characteristic of the film at all. But as you can see, I had real trouble with these horses. But this was the final result. For blue film, with a tungsten balance, we have some really nice colour. The sharpness is slightly off, but overall I'm reasonably happy with that photo. After that, I decided to go further into the forest and try and capture actually more of the shots that I intended to take this day. We have a really unique location today, as you can see from this nice drone shot. A small forest with some open scenery around it. What we have here is nice light through the trees and an opportunity for some really cool photos. The next one I went for turned out really well. I decided to go for something a lot simpler and easier than shooting the horses. I went for a static subject, just the trees into the sunset. This was the composition, and then the final shot turned out like this. Extremely happy with it, and that possibly will be the best shot we took on this day. I noticed the farmhouse, but it was really far away, so I decided the next thing to do would be to change the lens. So you can see here I'm changing the lens. I went for an 80 to 200mm lens on 35mm film, so it presents a much more close image and looks really good in the end. This photo turned out not quite as I hoped, but overall I think it was okay. So it ended up slightly bluer than expected, and if anything, compositionally a little bit vague. I like photos with a clear subject, and I don't think that one quite achieved that. So after that I decided to go further into the forest. I walked past this part and then found a river. This shot was a disaster. I got caught up in what I was doing and trying not to fall in the river, and I didn't focus on the composition. Luckily, I had some digital files that I was able to take photos from, but they were by no means ideal. What I often do is to judge properly the exposure. What I'll do is I'll shoot the photo on digital first, and then transfer the settings over from that to the film camera. It's also worth saying today we're shooting on a Pentax K50. It's like a replica. It's made by a company called Centon. I will do a video with all the cameras and equipment I use. As you can see here, this was the intended composition, and this was the end result. An absolute disaster. About 3 or 4 stops underexposed, and highlights only. For this next photo I decided to shoot the river again from a different perspective. This, to be honest, was just to start using up the film so I could make this video, but as you can see it was getting darker and the shots had to be tripod mounted at this point, even with the 800 speed film. So what we have here is a camera on the tripod, and what we got wasn't very good. It was a little bit unsharp, and after that I'd had enough, time to go. So I headed off and took these photos to finish the film. These are photos around my local area, and this is what I got back. I think out of this there are 3 usable photos, these ones here, that are almost somewhere on their way to success. So the editing begun. The editing on these photos is really basic. All of my editing is really simple. I believe in shooting the photos as much the way you want them to end up as you can in camera from the start. So it's a case of contrast, cropping, and a little bit of brightness and saturation, but respecting the colours the film gives originally. This was the first one, my second favourite photo I shot that day. I like the way it turned out with the colour, despite it being tungsten film. I would ideally have shot it slightly differently. This one is good, it captures the blue tones, but I feel that compositionally it's a little bit weak, and it lacks the visual impact that I usually look for in photos. Out of the day, this is my favourite. I think it's really cool with the colour. I enhanced the blue slightly on this, and I'm really happy with what came out of it. Thank you so much everyone, more videos soon.